Alright, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin wassalatu wassalamu ala asyrafil anbiya'i wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajmain. Alhamdulillah, thank you very much for everybody to attend this session, TaCTIc talk. And with me we have here Dr. Rosna. I'm going to introduce you with Dr. Rosna. Mak Zain, you can call her Dr. Rose. Yeah, bunga. Dr. Rose. And today we are going to have our session on a topic about still related to L&D, which we call it as how L&D could be the driver for high performance culture. And looking at this topic, how L&D can be the driver for high performance culture, we are looking into how our role as a learning and development practitioner, learning and development executive, managers, or whatever level that you have in your company related to L&D. So we are going to look into how can we play our role and to push our organization into a high performance culture. And together with this, we have here in our L&D TaCTIc talk. TaCTIc talk is about TaCTIc of L&D, and also CTI, Corporate Training Institute, is organizing this TaCTIc talk for us to create awareness to all L&D practitioners in DRB and also external DRB. If you are joining this session, we are looking into how can we be more effective, more impactful, and more relevant to the organization. So however, whatever that we do in any organization, our aim is to ensure that the development of our staff is becoming better and improve. A bit about Dr. Rosna. I extract some of her profile from her CV. So her expertise related to talent development, training, curriculum development. We have also instructional design, policy development, strategy development and implementation, strategy, communications, and also stakeholders engagement, mentoring and change management. Banyak lah kan, mouthful lah, panjang sangat. Jadi is a very experienced person, Dr. Rosna. Dr. Rose is a very experienced person. Doctorate degree from University of South Australia in leadership development. Along the line that we have some conversation, I believe Dr. Rose also has many points and many sharings on leadership. So if you would like to check with her on any leadership questions, you can check with her as well. And also Dr. Rose previously is the Director of Education at the Asian Institute of Chartered Bankers. So this institute is an entity that's set up by Bank Negara. So her exposure comes from Bank Negara, comes from some of the private entities, some of the organization that she has exposed with, and she has also exposure with our governor previously, Datuk Zeti, right, Dr. Rose? And there are many sharings that she shared with us during our informal conversation, and I would believe that her exposure and her experience would be very beneficial for us. Take this opportunity for you to check with her and to ask her some challenging questions. Do not give simple questions. And also, as she was from Bank Negara, I believe there are some best practices that she has been experienced before. And to start with, Dr. Rose, I'm looking into several perceptions of L&D people and also other people about high performance culture. So there are three beliefs or believers on what would be the high performance culture is. Number one, they think that the first group think that a high performance culture is driven through these 5 elements. leadership and communication, values and rituals, work teams and structures, human capital, and also performance. This is the first group that believe what high performance culture is. The second group of the second group believe in that the organizations must bolster performance management practices to build a high performance culture. So there comes a question is that if we are looking into performance, there usually people are looking into individual performance management. So how was that? And another group, the third group is saying about high performance culture is about describing the behaviors that they find essential to a culture. There are outline of these five. Do what's best for the customer, that's considered as high performance culture. Make quality personal. Be a fanatic about response time. Yeah, response time feedback. Be process oriented. Be relentless about improvement. So these are the three groups that are thinking about what high performance culture is. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if these are the three groups that are thinking about high performance culture, I'm bringing to you Dr. Rosna, which is Dr. Rosna is the practitioner. So she's going to share with us what are some of the actual practices that she has experienced before. So because I believe each and every one of you realize that we are looking into how we can look into things practically, not theoretically, something that we can immediately apply. Immediately apply after the session, we can immediately apply what we have learned. So that is very important. So our mission is that to know more about it, and Dr. Rose and myself will be communicating, and as and when I have some questions and also inputs, I'm going to interject and also intervene, interject into the discussion. Nevertheless, I believe Dr. Rose has prepared some materials for you, and I hope that and we hope that Dr. Rose can share that material after the session, after this, so that we can share with our participants. So with that, Dr. Rose, I leave it. I hand over the floor to you, and you can share your screen. Over to you, Dr. Rose. Thank you. Your microphone, Doctor.
Okay, can you hear me, everyone?
Yes.
Yes,
Sure.
so I'm going to show my slides now. Hang on. Right, browse my computer. Okay. Okay. Now, the topic that was given to me today to share is practically the role of learning and development in driving high performance culture. So this is a very, I would say, interesting topic because everybody wants to perform. Individually, we want to perform. As an organization also, we want to perform. So before we discuss what are some of the criteria or contexts or situations that allow us to perform, let us define this topic first. And the reason why we have to define this topic is actually to make sure that our conversation today, our engagement today is within this specific topic, right? At least for an hour, right? Okay, so brief definition of the topic. The topic, it has two main areas. One is actually learning and development, like what Auntie Azul is saying, and the other one is practically high performance culture. Now, I am not going to go much into learning and development because everybody here is practically learning and development actors. So I'm sure we understand what it is. But to briefly mention, right, learning in a way is the acquisition of SKA, skill, knowledge, and attitudes. Skills and knowledge, right, it is quite easy for us to attain. Quite easy for us to attain. But it is that attitude that is very, very difficult attain by a lot of people, especially when that attitude is very much ingrained in us and becomes our values and our cultures and our norms, right? Actually to perform. Right. If my staff tell me that I want to develop, yet I want to learn how to cook, I say this is not the development that I am looking for in the context of you working in this organization. Right. So we develop to perform. So this clarity we must have very clear. It has to be very crystal clear in our mind that whatever learning that I am going to take this year in my job is actually for me to perform. If that development does not result in performing, then that development is failure development. You actually have not actually developed in that sense, because we will talk about the impact of development in the context of performance, right? And what is performance culture? It's quite simple actually. What is actually high performance? The other one is culture, right? High performance is actually when you're able to perform exceed right expectation continuously. It is quite simple actually. It's simple actually. What is actually high performance? The other one is culture, is performance culture, because we are growing culture in a way. Right. So what is because individual performance culture, the word is actually consistently effective in everything that they do. Not just one time, but consistently effective in what they do. We are not talking about efficient here. We are not talking about efficient. We are talking about effectiveness. Because some people can be very efficient, and some but they are not effective. Like they go in a circle, right? They are not effective. So when we want to evaluate effectiveness, right, we do not evaluate effectiveness from our own perspective. We don't. That would be superficially evaluating our effectiveness. When we want to evaluate effectiveness, we have to evaluate our effectiveness from the perspective of our stakeholders, from the perspective of our audience, right? Bringing it down to a values level, to values understanding, as long as that not
Doctor, I think
yes,
your voice is intermittent.
intermittent.
Yeah.
Kak Ilan nak recruit Bakis ke apa ni? Tak faham. Ni apa ni yang Aisyah bagi ni? Contoh. Saya dah prepare dah.
Okay. Is it still intermittent, Cik Zul?
Macam
Okay, now seems okay. Right.
Okay, now because I bring the mic a little bit further from me.
Oh, okay. Right.
Okay. So what happened is that, majority, when we talk about the culture of performance, right, majority of the people in that culture has to perform, not just one person. That means if you have 10 people, majority has to be 60 people or 70 people. It cannot be less than 50 people. Right, so that is how we evaluate culture of performance in an organization. Now, I'm going to pause here, right, to allow some questions from Encik Sul or from anyone. in the group about high performance culture and about learning and development if you have any questions.
Okay, anybody? Is there any questions about high performance culture before we continue further? Ada? Kalau tak ada, Doctor, I think maybe you can continue. Once,
I can continue.
once we have any question, I think immediately the participants can raise their hands using the raise button, and then we can answer the questions along the line. Boleh, Doctor?
Yes, that's good because this one is just introduction in a way. It's quite theoretical in nature.
Yeah, sure.
Right. So the next one would be what is culture in a way and how important is culture, right? Here I say that culture is strategy for breakfast. What does it mean when we say culture is strategy for breakfast? And I see this a lot in an organization when they want to change the culture, right? Culture is so strong in a way that if you pin a good person to a bad culture, the good person will eventually subscribe to that culture, right? Culture will always win because culture is very strong. And this is something that a lot of people and a lot of organizations make the mistakes. When they want to change the culture, they will hire somebody to come in. And if this somebody is not high enough, right, in their designation, right, that somebody will not be able to change the culture. And this somebody eventually will succumb to that culture, subscribe to that culture, or worse still, will decide to leave that organization. And this happens over and over again. And I can see that particularly in the organization nowadays, right? Especially when we are dealing with the younger staff, the millennium, right? At least in my organization, we experience this. You know, they are young, they have a different culture, they are trained differently, right? When they come into an organization with a certain type of culture and the culture is very strong, right? They find it very difficult to adapt. And most of the time, within 24 months or within 36 months, they will leave the organization, right? And HR will say that, you know, they spend a lot of money to get these people, and within like 3 years or 2 years, these people will leave. And this is where skill development experts, like all of us, have to come in and see how we could actually teach the onboarding program to make sure that whatever people coming in, we are able to assimilate them effectively into the culture that we have, and hopefully that this culture is a good culture. Because each organization has a different culture. Whether you are, I'm sure that banking has a different culture, university has a different culture, right? Petrochemical has a different culture, because sometimes culture very much depends on the culture that organization itself. Like Encik Zul just now gave me 3 options in a way to pick, in a way, and I have to, not really consider which groups. Right, so that by the time we reach the able to think from a global perspective, to because culture.
Doctor, I think your voice is going intermittent again.
Oh my goodness.
I'm not sure whether my speaker or maybe the rest. Yeah.
We're having the same problem, Cik Zul.
Yeah, okay, yes. Maybe you are using, what microphone are you using now? You're using external microphone,
I'm using external microphone. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to off the microphone and I am just using the natural voice. Okay.
Yeah, it's clear. It's clear. This one is better.
This one is better.
Yeah, yeah, correct.
Okay, good. Good.
Thank you, Dada. Sorry.
Okay. Okay. So the culture is actually the soil, right? And whatever we put within that culture is practically the seed. Okay. So I'm going to go to my next slide, right? Now, these are practically the 5 key ingredients with regards to high performance culture, right? We have the strategy, we have the policy, process, system, structure, we have the leadership, management, we have engagement, and we have people. Now, all of these 5 ingredients, if we do not get it right, we do not get it right, or we do not align them properly, we will not be able to infuse or to build the culture that we want to have, because this is practically a web. It is actually a web. Some people ask me, they say, Dr. Rose, which one is the most important? Right? Whether it is a strategy, whether it is the policies or process, whether it is leadership, whether it is engagement, communication, or is it the people? Right. If you ask me based on my experience, right, it is always the people at the end of the day. The staff willingness, the staff awareness, the staff desire, the staff's knowledge actually to change and to perform. Right. And when it comes to engagement, for example, some people, they come to me and they say, hey, Dr. Rose, I try to manage my staff to make sure that they perform. Right? But they are not performing. What is wrong? And I tell them that the mere use of the word management is already not right. Because when you say, like, when people talk about people's management, right? Stakeholder management. I remember one time I was presenting to my boss, Governor Zati, right? But I was there, not presenting, but the slide was the one that I did. And my assistant governor presented, and the first time we used the word stakeholder management, right? And governor looked at us and said, maybe we need to change it, because the word management connotes me or institutions or supervisors, right? Controlling people, managing people. But what we want is actually more engagement, more understanding, more collaboration. So we change the word management into engagement and communication. And even communication itself, we change it into strategic communication. I am going to have strategic conversation with you. So the articulations is all different. Right, because when we want to get results or to achieve positivity or to change the way we engage and the way we communicate, right, it is very, very critical. We have actually tone from the top sometimes, we have sounds in the middle, we have echoes, from the below. So these are some of the things that we need to think about, right, when we want to infuse the culture of excellence, right? And the strategy, for example, right, people ask me, okay, what kind of strategy must I have if I want to have the culture of performance, right? The strategy has to be focusing on performance. We cannot focus on other things. Right, and this strategy must be cascaded down from the top to the middle management to the staff, right, even to the lowest people, right? They must understand that performing is what we are going to focus in the next 5 years. Whatever things that you want to do, at the end of the day, I want to see that you perform. right? No matter where you are, you can be a security guard. I think I spoke about this with Encik Zul previously. You can be a security guard, but in my institution we don't call them security guard because we do not want them to feel as if they are security guard. We in a way see them as physical security officers because they look at physical risk, right? When it comes to risk, we have physical risk, we have reputational risk, we have legal risk, we have digital risk, we have financial risk, we have operation risk. So there's a lot of type, a lot of risk. But some risk can be very strategic, in nature, but some risk can be very physical in nature. But just because we are in physical elements of our work, that doesn't mean we cannot be strategic, right? But coming back to the strategy, if the organization wanted to be a performing organization, the strategy must be put in place. And this is practically non-negotiable. You have to put that in place, right? And when it comes to policies and processes, and this is where the department alone must collaborate with other departments to put in processes where coming together you can enhance the culture of performance. For example, imagine that learning and development wanted to train people to be performer. So you have 7 habits of highly effective people. You bring all these learning solutions, global standards, learning solutions, to teach people, to train people, to make sure that they perform. But on the HR side, which is strategic HR, is not looking at how are we going to compensate those people who are performing. Right, government, for example, has a lot of challenges in recognizing performers. Practically because government salary structure is quite regimented actually. So even if you perform, right, your recognition, your remuneration is not that high as compared to people who are just doing the least. So when HR is not coming together to make sure that they also put in places, put in systems, policy structure to benefit performers, eventually those people who are willing to perform finally will succumb to mediocre performance. Because as human being, right, I can tell you, nobody is born to bend backwards to perform. Nobody is born to bend backwards to perform, right? Because we need to know what is it in me that makes me want to perform, right? We looked at those people, in their 50s, in their 60s, the performers, when I speak to these people, for example, CEOs of the bank, right? When I speak to these people and I say, what makes you perform? What makes you going the extra mile? What actually push you? And most of them, 7 out of 10, will tell me that, Dr. Rose, when I was young, I was very poor. And it was poverty that teach me performance. I know that I have to perform in order for me to get out of this situation, right? So that is actually a compelling reasons for people to perform. And who created these reasons? Who give them this reason? This is actually a major question. Can Encik Zul give me the reason to perform? Can can the organization give me the reason to perform? Right? Or can I give myself the reason to perform? If I want to give myself the reason to perform, why? Because we need to focus more on the question of why when we want the staff to perform, and not so much of how. So talent and development actors in this aspect is very, very challenging actually for all of us, right, to compel the staff to perform. Practically because we don't really understand the reason why they should be performing. We can tell them, oh, you have to perform because this is good for the company, this is good for the company, right? When we do that, we in a way separate between me and my company, right? My company. Right. So this is quite interesting. Because if the company is very good, if the company takes care of the staff, the staff will fall in love with the company, not just professionally, but emotionally. Right. Okay. How do we know that a staff has actually fallen in love with the company emotionally? Right. You can actually test this. When someone out there said something bad about the company, right, you will get very upset. You will get very upset, and you will right defend the company. So when I see a staff defending the company, I can see that the staff has actually fallen in love with the company emotionally, not just professionally. And if this thing happens, right, I can bet my little finger, right, the staff will even take the bullet for the organization. The staff will even stand before the tsunamis, right, to defend the organization. And I don't see this quite a lot in my 25 years of experience in talent development. Now, leadership and management, I'm not going to talk much about this, and also engagement communication, I'm not going to speak much about this today, maybe sometime in the future, right? And I'm going to go next, to my next slides, where we in a way see what is the challenge when it comes to implementing performance culture.
Dr.
Yes,
Ros,
Encik Zul.
Dr. Ros, I have some question coming from our YouTube. So, and measure our performance. And also, how do we know whether or not we are truly performing or just lying to ourselves?
That is a very, very good question. That
Yeah.
is a very, very good question, actually. When we look at performance, for example, right, when a staff performs, right, and we know that the result is there, and when we want to see the results, there are two ways of doing it. If the organization is practically profit-making organization, an organization like Proton, for example, selling cars, when people are buying your cars, or when people are recommending your cars or praising your cars, tell people that you are performing. The result speaks by itself. It's like, I remember one of the governors says that, because I serve 3 governors actually. I serve Governor Zati, I serve Governor MI, and I also serve Governor Shamsia. You see, and one of the governor mentioned that people that you're good, you don't have to tell people that you're good, but the results of your actions or the results of your policy, if it can change people's life, then you are actually effective. You are performing, right? So it depends on what kind of organization that you have. If that, you have to see your performance from the perspective, or you have to see your effectiveness from the perspective of your stakeholder, right? If your stakeholder said, hey, you are performing, hey, you are good, hey, you are meeting our expectations, right, then you are performing. So that we use the word syok sendiri, right? I'm using the Malay word here, right? Syok sendiri, right? There is no elements of that. And if you really want to know whether you perform or not, one of the easiest way is actually to have a survey. I give, for example, Colgate. Colgate is actually a toothpaste. Colgate is a brand name. But why exactly that? We say, I want to go out and buy Colgate. We might not buy Colgate, we buy Darlie, or we buy some other things.
Yeah.
But we use Colgate rather than...
That's the branding, right?
Yes, and why exactly the branding becomes so good? It's practically because of the product.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right? Because of the product. because the product performs. A lot of people buy them, right? So these are some of the ways that we could actually think, or we could actually assess our performance. Do I answer the question?
Yes, thanks, Doctor. That's a superb explanation. Another one. How do we set the bar just enough for them to thrive without overstressing our team? Because when we are looking into high performance culture, so there will be push and pull factor. So how can we set the bar just sufficient enough, cukup-cukup lah, without overstressing them?
Okay. And this is where supervisors comes into place actually, Encik Zul, because everybody is just a human being. Science says we are just Homo sapien in a way, and we know our limit. And organization should know the limit. And the best person to know what is the limit is actually two people. One is actually myself, and I know what is my limit. And the other one is actually my supervisor. Because some supervisors, if they are a very good supervisors, when they look, they see. When they hear, they listen. And as a staff, we have to also engage our bosses. We have to be honest. We have to be sincere. And the concept of sincerity is very, very important in performance culture, because you have to be sincere. If I feel that I am, overly stressed, like at least in my organization, because we have open and honest communication, right? We can just go right up to our boss and say, I'm sorry, I am so stressed. I am super stressed. I have like 5 projects running concurrently right now. And these 5 projects, I have to manage upward, I have to manage downward, I have to manage internal stakeholders, I have to manage external stakeholders, and I have this risk, and the budget is so big, And sometimes once the boss says that, the boss will look at me and say, okay, Dr. Rose, why don't we re-strategize? Why don't we reprioritize? Why don't we resource? Right, because these are the 3 elements that we have to look at when one person is actually stressing. And sometimes we stress ourselves for no reasons, because if you are not effective, that is where you are stressed. Right. In fact, yesterday is kind of interesting. Yesterday I was talking about time management, how we could actually manage time to lower down our stress. Right. If you can just manage your time well, you would lower your stress 25 to 30%. When we did research, of those people who performs well, they are practically very good time manager, right? How do we behave? What are some of the practices that we need to put in place so that we can manage our time? Because life is all about time management, right? Even for the Muslims, right? Right, Allah bersumpah demi masa. It's kind of interesting. So coming to this one, right? If you feel that you are stressed, you have to inform that you are stressed. And the job itself, the job size itself, has to be fair to you, right? Your supervisors should not be giving you a job that is too big for you to do. A person, a team. Right. For example, when my boss actually wanted me to develop a model for a new department, he said, Rose, why don't you have a few people helping you? You can name this person. You can first look at what are the competencies needed to do this job, in your opinion, right? And who are the people that you think can do this job effectively within the time span that we have to do this job. So the role of supervisors in the culture of performance is actually very key. Otherwise, the organization can experience a heart attack. When you see attrition going up very, very fast, very, very high, rather than 2-3%, suddenly go into like 10-15%, right? So that is actually the concept of, you know, stress, how you manage stress when you want to infuse the culture of performance. But then when you are clear of what you want to achieve, sometimes you are not that stressed, right? And this infusing the culture of performance, right, and so it cannot take 1 year, it cannot take 2 years, because it has to take, right, minimum, I would say 3 to 5 years, because usually the first year we focus on learning organization, making the organization as a learning organization. After that, right, moving from that learning organization, we focus that organization to be a focused organization. You are focused in your role, you are focused delivering your mandate, right? And then after that, only then you can go into a performing organization. You cannot jump straight away into, hey, we want to be a performing organization. No, you cannot become a performing organization if you are not a learning organization. Sincerely, frankly, honest to God. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Doctor. You can start. You can proceed. Sorry.
I can proceed because I only have 15 more minutes. Now, when it comes to excellent organization, right? Here I'm going to ask everyone, what is the level that is most difficult to manage? Right, you can actually decide which level that is most difficult to manage, whether it is at individuals level, whether it at team, section, departments, or organization, right? Some people, they might say, oh, individual level, some people team, some people section, some people department. But usually if you can manage at individuals level, you almost there, because teams make up of individuals, right? Section makes up of teams, and department makes up of section, and organization makes up of department, right? Okay. Barrier to high performance culture. Barrier to high performance culture at individual level. And this is something that we need to look inside us, right? Some of them can be deep set belief, right? Because nobody actually forces us to perform. Tak apalah, it's okay as long as you do it. Cincai is already good enough. And if we were born or grow up in a cincai norm, eventually it becomes our culture, something that we don't really see, but we exhibit that. Thinking, why do I need to perform? I don't have to perform. Even if I perform, my salary tak adalah tinggi sangat pun, bonus I sama saja macam orang lain. Kan? But if you can differentiate, if HR can differentiate, mediocre you get 3 months bonus, performer you get 7 months bonus, that 3 months difference, people will bend backwards perform. But again, if you want to perform, make sure that you do not actually bully. We do not bully, do not have the bully culture. We do not coerce our staff to perform. We do not blackmail our staff to perform. So this is actually one part of behavior that we have to look into in performing culture infusion, enculturation of performing culture. And the other one is actually personal leadership, right? And this is where we talk about personal mastery. And this is actually another topic that we need to look into, right? And the last one is actually goal and achievement. I have no goal. I just want to work here until I retire. You know, I'm okay. I'm okay, right? So this is barriers to performance, right? And the next one is actually 4 levels of learning organization maturity, like what I mentioned just now, right? If you are not a learning organization, you're not going to be a performing organization, because when we want to perform, we need to have knowledge. We need to have knowledge, because we are not the Milky Way. We are not vacuum, right? And knowledge is interesting, because if you are not learning, I mean, we can tell our staff this: if you are not learning, you are practically regressing. Don't think that you are static. You are not static. You are regressing practically, because the knowledge moves so fast forward, right? You are practically regressing. Like Steve Jobs says, stay foolish, stay hunger. And that is actually an amazing quote, because that the 4 words actually can be defined deeply in so many ways. right? So when it comes to learning organization, we could actually look at what level our organization is. Are you level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4? And each of the level has its own definition. Right, level 1, when learning becomes very episodic, pragmatic, very reactive and tactical in nature. Right, and then level 2 is actually when learning and development people are responsible for governance, procurement, design. You just design in a simplest way of defining it. And then level 3 is actually when people are empowered to learn. So this one is actually good. Talent development become a core competency of the management. And then when it comes to level 4, right, this is where everything in the organization is aligned around continuous learning, whether it is formal or informal. And if outside the organization, performers, one thing about them is that when they have
Doctor, your microphone.
okay.
Sorry.
Okay, it's okay. I put it very far away. I need to manage this, to be honest with you guys.
It's okay.
Okay. So when it comes to level 4, right, everything in the organization is aligned around continuous learning, both formal or informal. And like what I mentioned just now, a performer, right, they could actually assess the gaps, and quietly they will try to close the gaps. Even outside the organization, they will close the gaps. I have a few mentees who are taking, for example, English language. And when I speak to these people, I say, your English is so good, your language is so good, but they still feel that they have to improve their language. So they go out and they pay on their own. Right, and one of them say, "Hey, Dr. Rose, anak bercakap macam Mak Saleh lah." They say, "You don't need to speak like Mak Saleh." But they go out and learn how to speak with American slang, with British slang, because they want to appear to be performing when they do their presentation. So this is quite interesting, actually. And the right culture has to be nurtured, right? And this is the message that I have for these slides. Right? And how do we nurture this culture? It is just not implementing one initiative. It is actually implementing a number of initiatives, actually. Systems thinking, personal mastery, mental models, we need to have the right mental models, shared vision, and team learning. And shared vision alone will take, another session if you want to talk about this, right? And the next one, my next slide is talk about fundamental as a human being, right? We are not a vacuum, right? As a human being, we cannot perform without knowledge, right? For Bank Negara, for example, for us, right, we see learning as the strategic driver for organizational performance. A strategic driver is not operational driver, it is a strategic driver. So that articulation alone defines, the importance of learning, right? And as talent development actors, we have to continuously learn. Like my staff, right? When I ask them, I said, okay, what is the book that you are currently reading? If they have to think, right, I will look at them and I will smile. That means they have to think. Unless they say, I have like 3 books that I'm reading concurrently. So I have to think about which book that I want to tell you. And I say, oh, good cover line. And the next one is 4 holistic approach to learning: education, environment, exposure, and experience. And this is where we talk about credentialing. Like you are very lucky for the RP HighCom because you have the RP University, and I actually applaud the RP HighCom for doing this, because not many organization is willing, right, or politically willing to do this, because it takes resource, it takes energy, it takes time, it takes money to have such a setup. But when you have such a setup, right, You are communicating to your stakeholders or the internal staff that you are very serious when it comes to learning, right? For my organization, right, when we have our performance evaluation, like we have 100%, right, in our performance checkpoints, right? 15% is actually dedicated for learning and development. If you are a supervisor, 10% is actually to show how you have mentored, you have coached, you have guided your staff. 10%, it is a lot. And the other 10% is actually what you actually learned. You know, there are individuals in my organization, right? At the end of the year, they will print out all the books that they have read, right? They have borrowed from our knowledge management entity. We have our knowledge management department, and we have a big library actually, right? They would print out all the books that they have actually read for that year, and they will show their supervisors. These are the books that I have read, and in my own experience as well, when I was given a project, right? My deputy governor actually gave me a book to read. And I'm just a small person in a big organization, right? And my assistant governor also gave me 2 books to read. Okay, you want to do this project, Dr. These are the 2 books that you have to read before you embark on this project. And he actually went and buy the books himself. And it is actually amazing. So when you have this culture coming down from upstairs, right, it's very easy for you to cascade this culture because your staff is watching, your staff is observing. If we want our staff to perform, we ourselves have to perform. We ourselves must show that I will do my best, I will only accept the best. Right. This is actually learning at workplace, and I think everybody knows this one. But what I want to bring down, concerning this slide is that a lot of people or a lot of us tend to focus on 10% of formal learning, whether you have type learning, you have talk, or whether you have e-learning. It is always focused on that 10%, right? But performing culture, performing organization, they tend to focus on the 70%, which is learning on the job. They focus on that. So if you want to design something, if you have really limited resources and time, right, you have to focus on designing on the job learning opportunity for the staff. And this is quite amazing because not many organizations and not many learning and development actors actually do this, because it is very difficult. To do this, we have to work closely with the line department. And when we want to work closely with the line department, we have to put in place structures that allow us to work closely with the line department. So in a way, learning and development is not an island. You must have a web. You must work with HR, you must work with strategic management department, you have to work with line departments, right? And if the line departments comprises of different types of businesses, and the challenge is because if you want to design this, you really need to understand what the staff is doing. Under self-directed learning, under product learning principle, the staff themselves can design their own learning opportunity, make them accountable, make them responsible for their own learning. Just like for Bank Negara, for example, right? And the staff is not learning. They come to me and they say, Dr. Rose, I'm not learning. I'm not that progressive. And I said, you have to devise your you have to have your own learning plan. You are responsible for your learning because as an adult, you decide what to learn, why to learn, how to learn, when to learn, where to learn. And you also need to decide
Doctor?
Yes.
I think you talk very fast and your laptop is not catching up your voice.
Okay. Okay, I talk very fast. Okay. So this is okay. I only have 2 more slides,
It's okay.
right? Or 3 more slides,
Uh-uh.
right? This principle of learning, and this is very, very important. And I think this is something that you can share with everyone, right? The SIN principle of learning: critical, important, and nice to have. Right. In times of COVID, I think you need to focus on critical elements, critical content, critical content. Forget about nice to have, right? Forget about important, right? What we need to do is we need to ask our staff to prioritize what they want to learn. Earlier the year, when they come to us, all the staff said, okay, like department also need to prioritize. For your department, what are the 3 things that you want your department to learn this year? Right, because the moment they say this is what I want to learn, like, okay, my department, I want to learn, time management. So we will design like learning on the job in managing time. How do you actually, go to your meeting? Right. For my organization, time is the most important. Right. If I'm late 3 minutes, I would rather not go for the meeting. And if my stakeholders is actually really, really top up people upstairs, right? Some of my colleagues, there was one of my colleagues decided, right, he said, okay, I don't know how to manage this. I hope that, big boss will not call me and ask me why I am late, right? So focus on the critical of knowledge, right? If your resources is very limited, right? And the last one is actually that role of learning and development in the context of performance culture. You need to focus on EQs. You cannot focus on EQ. EQs means, right, you have to create an environment where you allow people to want to learn. You must awaken the learner in your staff. Some people, they focus on educate. They just want to focus on teaching right away. No, the whole entire organization must have the conducive environment where when you go to work, you feel like you want to learn. Like for my staff, right, I tell them, I say, when you come to work, rather than ask yourself, hey, what is the thing that I have to do today? Ask yourself, what is actually the thing that I want to learn today? Because I'm going to learn in my job. If I have to do this presentation, I want to learn how I can do the best presentation, right? And we must have high competency as learning and development actors. We must have high competency because learning and development is a very, very huge area, right? It's very, very, very huge area. If you do not know your own content, people will not trust us. Right. People will not trust us. If people come and say, Dr. Rose, how we design curriculum? I'm not so sure about that. Dr. Rose, how do we design language? Dr. Rose, how do we design, for example, hybrid learning? What is instructional design? What is AD model? What is Kirkpatrick? What is Phillips? What is Gilbert 6 boxes? So these are some of the jargons that we need to know as learning and development people. Because number one, we have to be internal learning consultant. We need to act as a consultant to the line department. Because the moment we show people that we are competent, people will come and ask us questions, right? But we also need to be sincere, need to understand that we do not know a lot of things. We are just human beings, right? Sometimes, we also need to be educated, right? And the third one is actually we must set good example. I will not talk about this, right? When we talk about becoming learning evangelists, mubaligh, this is the word that we use. Right, we talk about learning evangelists, we talk about learning ambassador. That means you speak and live learning. When people look at you, for example, like in TaCTIc, when I see TaCTIc, I say TaCTIc learning development is your calling. I can see that you generally want to develop people, and this is very good. Because in a lot of organizations, right, and I did this research, I wanted to see how good, how competent the learning center is, and I did the research, and I found out that a lot of learning centers, what happened is when one staff is not performing, they give, they transfer these people to sit at the learning center, which is very bad. So that means they see learning not as important as it should be. And all of us have to be the CEOs of the learning agendas. We only have one CEO upstairs, but when it comes to learning agendas, right, we are the CEOs. We are the CEOs. That means we must be accountable, not responsible, accountable when it comes to learning and development. And the last one is actually key elements of developing. I will not go through this, particularly because there's a lot. But what we can do is, when you have time, you look at some of these elements like learning policy, leadership, structure, digital learning capability, and IT support, curriculum, the right content at the right time, at the right person, for the right reason, learning culture, arises. And I think this one is actually also excellent and good place. This is something that we need to share this with our staff, particularly because if they were to follow this, they would perform. They would perform. For my staff, I ask, what is the publication that they are reading right now? What is the association that you are a member of? What is the website that you visit in the morning before you start your work? That gives you latest information on your body knowledge. People that you know, your COP. Now, Encik Zul and all of you are my COP. Alhamdulillah. Conferences that you want to attend this year, whether online or webinar, develop what are the tools and templates that you are going to develop to make it easy for you to perform and master. Attitude is something that is actually non-negotiable. So that's it. So, right?
Yeah, I believe that's it should start from L&D, right, Doctor? It should start from L&D. The learningness. We are all learning L&D practitioners. Some of us is also educators. Some of us are lecturers. So I believe everything needs to start from us to looking into how can we improve ourselves and getting into the learning culture itself. How many books have we read? How many conferences that we would like to attend during any online courses that we can see, like for people to attend, Doctor?
Okay, just to share with you, like the best. We learn from the best. In fact, for learning, right, for online learning, we decided to take Harvard programs.
Yeah.
Where we can go in and learn, because if we want to be the best, right, we have to learn from the best. We have to get learning materials from the best, right? And if we really want to be a learning organization, I think HR also needs to play a very, very major role, right? What kind of stuff that you are taking in? We have to start from I would say from the earlier pipeline. People coming into the organization, right? Yes, but then performance may not be 17 A's, and so may not be 15 A's.
Correct.
No, that's not how we define performance. If you live in the kampung and then you get like 8 A's, right? You don't have all the support systems. To me, you are actually performing.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, Doctor, can I have the screen? I want to just make a summary of what we have discussed today.
Yes, I will stop presenting.
Yeah, correct. Sekejap
Yes, I already stopped presenting.
Okay. Alright. Thank you. Okay. I just want to summarize this into a high performance culture, which we have 6 elements, and these 6 elements are coming from McKinsey, based on their research in 2018. So I believe whatever that Dr. Rose has shared is about these 6 elements. So number 1 is about define behavior changes that unlock business performance, looking into how the culture that we can develop, our role as L&D. We focus on how we can have that behavioral changes that eventually it will increase our business performance. That's number 1. Number 2, we are looking into uncover the root cause of mindset. So Dr. Rose has mentioned many times about mindset, about how we can reframe, how can we see things from L&D perspective in ensuring that what we do is something that is supporting the organizational performance. Number 3, we as L&D, we need to engineer major business initiative. So we know that our organization, our company has business initiative, business activities. So we should support that. And also we in L&D should be the role model and to reinforce the desired culture, because once we have a project, once we have a new product that being introduced, our role is about building that culture. Our role is to push the initiative to a certain extent which people are going to embrace and internalize that projects and also culture. So that's our role. And number 4 is about to adjust work to create coherent employee experience. We employee experience starting from they've been recruited until they want to leave the company. L&D plays an important role. You have the authority, you have the power, you have the influence to put the experience. People are looking into what are their development programs that they have attended along the line, along the program, along the years that they are in the industry or in the company. And number 5, produce opportunities for individuals to overcome personal barriers to change. We I strongly believe that as L&D, we need to look people into how we can develop them, not into penalize them, not into looking into their performance to be deteriorating, looking into what are the potential that they have and how can we fit it into the gap, how can we propose something that can provide their and overcome their learning gap. And finally, I believe Dr. Rose also shared about the journey, lead the journey in rigorous and employee-centric ways, give opportunities to our employees. Everything is coming from us, which is our initiative, our proposals and our recommendations to the management for the management to consider the learning journey. As I've always mentioned to everybody, learning is a journey, not a destination. Okay, so that's the 6 elements that I would like to highlight about the high performance culture. Maybe is there any further questions from the floor? Because looking into the conversation, I can see there's one question: rewards and incentives lead to staff job satisfaction and high level motivation, which influence companies or department overall performance. What happens if your reward is not in tandem with your performance? Maybe this is one question that Dr. Rose wants to engage.
Okay, when rewards is not in tandem or when rewards is not aligned, right? It's not aligned. The concept of making people performance is actually like this. You need to balance between positive reinforcement and negative reinforcement if you want people to perform, right? And then when you balance this, for example, if you perform, I will reward you. If you don't perform, I will put you in PIP, Performance Improvement Program. I'm sure everybody knows that, right? Everybody's scared of that, right? Because within 2 years, that means you're going to lose your job if you don't perform. Now, when it comes to reward, right? When it comes to reward, that is why the strategy must come in. If the rewards is not aligned to the performance, then the organization is not serious about performing. Then to me, you are just giving me a lip service. You want me to perform, right? But you do not want to reward me. And I will tell it as it is. I will tell it as it is, right? I will tell the HR that I say we need to do something. We need to do something. That's why the demarcation of rewards, between mediocre performance and high performance has to be visible. Because the moment people see visibility from that aspect of reward, people will be compelled to perform. For example, imagine that your prime system is at 5. If you get 3.99, right, which is within the mediocre performance, I give you, for example, you get 3 months bonus. But if you get 4.0, you get maybe 5 months bonus, right? So it's just between 0.1, 0.1% only. Your bonus, your remuneration suddenly move so high, and that one month bonus essentially will compel you to strive ahead to get that 1%. And you will tell, usually human being is quite simple. I will do a lot of things to make sure that I can get that 1%. Where can I get the 1%? Right. So when rewards is not aligned to performance, this is where the strategy fails. That means if the strategy fails, right, the 5 key elements that you need to put in place to infuse this culture, if one, like your pillar, like when one pillar is failing, then the whole house is actually compromised. But to be honest, to everybody, right, people work for the salary. When people say, oh, I work hard because I believe in this. When people say, oh, I work hard because, I like my job, but when I ask them, if I don't give you the salary, will you still work very, very hard? They would just laugh at me and they say, oh, I'll just do my minimum, So sometimes we have to, look at from reality perspective. And some people, when they perform, they got good bonuses, recognize them. When they learn, like some of the stuff, when they go out and they get themselves degree or master, the organization actually rewards them. Like for Bank Negara, for example, when it comes to learning, we also reward the kids, the children of our staff who actually performs well, right, in their exams, because we want to make sure that the culture is actually transcends, because we are nation building institutions in a way. Yes. So for the RB HighPerform, you are on the right journey, I would say. Just if you feel that remuneration is something that you want to work, that is also something that you could actually start your journey. But with that, with regards to remuneration, I think you must have, top management trust, on this, because it cannot happen without board, approval, management approval.
Yep. Thank you very much, Dr. Rose, for your sharing. It's very fruitful today, and having you together with us, sharing your experience and also exposure in L&D. I believe you are one of the L&D specialists in Malaysia that we can refer for. Might be in future we are going to look into further collaboration on L&D. So our mission is to make sure that whatever that we do in during this TaCTIc talk or whatever that we are doing for L&D, the objective is for us to spread the importance of learning and development in any organization. So we also would like to have our group companies together with us and make sure that we can make it happen. We can develop people, we can make sure that our people being developed accordingly, according to their level, do not leave anybody behind, and make sure that our intention is always innamal amalu binniat. Everything starts from our niat. We should make sure that the knowledge, the learning culture, ilmu, is being spread together. So we are not so sure when until when we are in this particular world, but we are sure mati itu pasti. So this is one of the elements that we need to bring together in our next life. So thank you very much, Dr. Rosna, Dr. Rose, and we look forward for further collaboration. And the rest of the audience, so participants coming from DRB and also elsewhere, and also live, we have here from several places, Doctor. Thank you very much. We have also received some commendation from Hafiz. Congratulations everyone involved in making this happen. Very fruitful session indeed. Thank you, Dr. Rose. So we want to make sure that what we did is something beneficial for you, and looking forward for that. Thank you very much, everybody. We are going to end our session now, and see you in the next TaCTIc Talk of L&D from CTI DRBI University. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh. Thank
Thank
you.
you very much, Encik Zul. Assalamualaikum, everyone. Stay safe.
Yeah. Dr. Rose, can you stay a while? Thank you.
Yes, I can.
Alright,
Yes,
thank
I
you.
can. Absolutely, I
All
can.
right. Okay, tak apa. In the meantime, they are leaving. It's okay for us. Just thank you very much, Doctor, for your sharing. And I think that slides is really impactful. I believe the contents is there. And maybe you can share with us. You can email to Sue so that we can share with the rest of the participants that we have. So moving forward, we are looking into more contents on L&D. So we are looking into now we are looking into high performance culture. Before this, we are looking into how can we make L&D relevant. So many things in L&D that we need. So we are going to also communicate with you. Maybe you have some ideas on how we can maybe look into the leadership in L&D as well, right? So how can L&D people plays an important role in leadership program, or maybe the leadership in leading L&D team as well. So in many organization there are looking into